शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। यत्परं ब्रह्म सर्वात्मा विश्वस्यायतनं महत् सूक्ष्मात् सूक्ष्मतरं नित्यं तत्त्वमेव त्वमेव तत् जाग्रत् स्वप्न सुषुप्त्यादि प्रपञ्चं यत् प्रकाशते तद्ब्रह्माहमिति ज्ञात्वा सर्वबन्धैः प्रमुच्यते। त्रिषु धामसु यद्भोग्यं भोक्ता भोगश्च यद्भवेत् तेभ्यो विलक्षणः साक्षी चिन्मात्रोऽहं सदाशिवः मय्येव सकलं जातं मयि सर्वं प्रतिष्ठितं मयि सर्वं लयं याति तद्ब्रह्माद्वयमस्म्यहम् अणोरणीयानहमेव तद्वन्महानहं विश्वमहं विचित्रम् पुरातनोऽहं पुरुषोऽहमीशो हिरण्मयोऽहं शिवरूपमस्मि अपाणिपादोऽहमचिन्त्यशक्तिः पश्याम्यचक्षुः सशृणोम्यकर्णः अहं विजानामि विविक्तरूपो न चास्ति वेत्ता मम चित्सदाहम् वेदैरनेकैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम् न पुण्यपापे मम नास्ति नाशो न जन्म देहेन्द्रियबुद्धिरस्ति न भूमिरापो न च वह्निरस्ति न चानिलो मेऽस्ति न चाम्बरं च एवं विदित्वा परमात्मरूपं गुहाशयं निष्कलमद्वितीयम् समस्तसाक्षिं सदसद्विहीनं प्रयाति शुद्धं परमात्मरूपम् यः शतरुद्रीयमधीते सोऽग्निपूतो भवति सुरापानात् पूतो भवति ब्रह्महत्यात् पूतो भवति कृत्यात् पूतो भवति तस्मादविमुक्तमाश्रितो भवति अत्याश्रमी सर्वदा सकृद्वा जपेत् अनेन ज्ञानमाप्नोति संसारार्णवनाशनम् तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं कैवल्यं फलमश्नुत इति।
He who absorbs Shatarudreeya becomes purified by fire, purified of drinking intoxicant, purified of killing a Brahmin, purified of commission and omission. Therefore, one should strive to become ever liberated. He who is of the highest order of life should chant it always or once. So we said that the last two mantras, which forms part 2 of the Upanishad, are given as additional direct advices to the sadhaka as to what one must do to attain the fruit of liberation. The Kaivalya Upanishad, with its pristine philosophical content, is as it were complete in the mantra 23. Now, catering to the students' thirst and yearning for more knowledge, and also giving a direct sadhana, the Guru gives 2 more mantras here. And also we said that in a way it also can be taken as a phalashruti as to what will happen when you undertake spiritual sadhana. So that Kaivalyam Phalamashnute is what is going to be the culmination of this Upanishad in the next mantra. Now what is the advice that is given here? Study and absorb Shatarudreeya. Yes, Shatarudriyam adite. Rajiti can tell me. Adite is verb, which is Atmanepadi. In Sanskrit, there are 2 types of verbs. One is called as Parasmaipadi, one is called as Atmanepadi. And certain roots of verbs can be used in either of them. Certain can be used in both. They are called Ubhayapadi. But these are the 2 essential forms of verbs in Sanskrit. Kriyapadam. Now, the basic difference I think is when the action that is given in the verb is performed and the fruit of which accrues to oneself, that is Atmanepadi. The fruit of which is for all, for others, it is Parasmaipadi. This I think is the basic difference. So, I think Pachati means cooks. Pachate means he cooks, but he cooks for oneself. So these are certain verbs that can be used for both forms, but some are used in one form. I think Adite comes under Atmanepadi. Why I am talking about that Sanskrit verb is Yes Shatarudriyam Adite. Adite means one who does Adhyayana of it. Adhyayana is essentially going through it again and again with the aim of absorbing it. That is called as Adhyayan. So, it starts with actually chanting. When people talk about Veda Adhyayan, they don't talk about really the meaning first. But what is the power of these mantras? The power of these mantras is that later when it gets into your system, it becomes worthy of reflection so that you will not escape its meaning also later. The essence of it, basically. So, yes, Shatarudriya Madite. Shatarudriya is 100 names of Lord Shiva. It is given in the Yajur Veda. What it means is not this particular text alone. It should be taken as a particular Vedantic text which is giving this wisdom. And of course, these are texts of authority which is given in Vedas. It can be that we can even say that you absorb whatever is the content given in a Vedanta treatise in the modern context. But the one advantage with these texts is that it is in the form of that it is you can do the memorizing, adhyayan, and then you can go deeper into the reflection also. So Shatarudriya is the famous middle portion of the Vedas. I think it refers to the what we call as the Maharudram. I don't know if it is 100, but some say it is 300 names there, but I am not sure. I think it refers to that only. So, in this Upanishad, the Brahman in its pristine form is explained throughout, and in couple of places he has also given Upasana with form where he has mentioned about Lord Shiva. Mantra 6, I think, 6 or 7, he talks about Lord Shiva. So, therefore, continuing in the same vein here, he is talking about a sadhana for a person who is at any level, that you can start by absorbing the knowledge given in Shatarudriya. So you chant and you absorb and you get into the meaning and reflection of what is given in Shatarudriya. Rudra here represents the ultimate reality. Rudra in the form of Shiva, in the form of Mahakala, in the form of Nilakanta, whatever form you can really conceive of and worship, he forms the symbolism or representation of the supreme reality. So one who is able to do that, he is able to get over certain things, he says. Now, but how does this work? See, when a person is able to invoke the names of the Lord, there are, for all the gods you have generally in temple also, they do Archana with 108 names, 100 names is given. Each and every name is either talking about the gunas of the God. It is talking about certain leela of the God. It is talking about the tattva in essence that it represents. There are various names are there. Vishnu Sahasranama is classified, I think, by Adi Shankaracharya in his commentaries in this form only. When you talk about Narasimha as the name of Vishnu, it is immediately bringing us the memory of his leela in the form of Lord Narasimha. How he protected Prahlada and how he killed Hiranyakashipu. If you talk about something like Vishwam, Vishnu, it is talking about the core tattva. When you talk about certain gunas, what to say? Nishta Shanti Parayanam, it says somebody who is in absolute Shivam Prashantam Amritam Brahma, like that it comes here. It is talking about the absolute tranquil quality. So, our mind may get involved in either of these or all of these. So, if you are not able to bring your concentration upon the God immediately, these names of the God help you to get connected with whatever is associated with the God. These are helping in thought association. So the moment you are, so that is why when people do chanting of Bhagavata, it is talking about Krishna's Leela. So Krishna's Leela is elaborate. As you are chanting, suppose the term Damodara comes. Damodara is a term where Krishna is bound in the stomach with the rope by Yashoda. So immediately that particular episode comes to your mind. Or it could be anything, Padmanabha, then the lotus that comes from the Nabi of Vishnu. So these are the things that immediately gets you associated with it. And with the understanding of the depth of each and every term, if you reflect upon it, it will go into what is known as the core of Brahman only. So it is an ingenious way by which your thoughts which tend to scatter here or there are arrested and brought. Even in the beginning, after you have memorized, you can mechanically chant the mantra. You can sometimes even walk on the road and chant. Okay. The chant from the mouth forms the connection between the action in the body and the thought in the mind. So that is why when they talk about tapas, when they talk about everything, they talk about the linear progression of thought, word and deed. So that word forms an important connection between these two. So we are not saying that the gross controls the subtle. No way. It is the thought which is subtle, word is much gross, action is much grosser. But we need sometimes this thought in the form of even japa. That is why he says, Atyashrami Sarvada Sakritva Japet. And in 10th chapter of Gita, Krishna says, Yajnanam Japa Yajñosme. Of all the yajnas, I am the Japa Yajna. If you remember, 10th chapter talks about the glories, the best of everything. And the best of all yajnas, he says, I am the Japa Yajna, he says. Japa is chanting the name. Even as you tend to do it mechanically, sometimes or the other, the chant tends to get disturbed if the mind gets too much deviated. So it forms a jerk and brings you back to the concentration. So constantly taking up Lord's name or writing Lord's name, whatever it is, these exercises, however mechanical they may seem, they do have an impact or an effect. It helps in bringing the mind back. Again, I am saying it is not that the chanting controls the mind or something. It becomes conducive. It becomes easy. It becomes then much more easier for us to bring the mind into the task that is chosen here. In one of the commentators has given the title Brahma Shatarudreeya to Kaivalya Upanishad itself. It's very interesting. Such a powerful way that all the names and all the descriptions are given in a very short 25 mantra packed in this Upanishad. I casually counted nearly 70 to 80 names are there for as we called as pointers in such a short Upanishad. You can do that homework also if you want. See, these are again the ways by which you get associated with the text. Of course, the main thing is to get into the meaning and revel in it. But, somebody can try it out. In Bhagavad Gita, see how much names Krishna is calling Arjuna and Arjuna is calling Krishna. Different names they call each other. 18 chapters, you have enough exercise on that. And which names occurs many times, which names occurs once, and then you will understand more than 90% of the times the right term is used in the right context also. So that itself is a message there. So this is an exercise. So you cannot say that, what am I to do with Gita? This itself, then what will happen is, side effect is that you will learn certain Sanskrit terms and other things, but that is a side effect. But main thing is your association with Gita itself will improve. Exactly like that. This Kaivalya Upanishad is commented upon by a great commentator as Brahma Shatarudreeya. So it can be taken as, Swami Chinmayananda says, that you chant the Shatarudriya given in the Vedas, or he is talking about chanting this Upanishad itself. This Upanishad itself, Kaivalya Upanishad itself. So by doing that, he says, you are going to get certain effect. You are purified at all levels. Now, why is this addressed from a very subtle theme of Upanishads, as I said, down to earth? Now practical advice is given. Because people who undertake spiritual sadhana, particularly in the initial phase, sometimes are driven by their past actions' guilt. I should have done this, or I should not have done this. Or when we turn back with awareness at our own past life, we may have certain regrets, certain guilts. It is good to have that regret for a while. Because if the deep feeling is not there, you have not understood the essence of what you have missed. But that guilt should not be carried on forever. That is why Nilakanta, he is able to swallow the poison and keep it here. It should not go and affect your heart or head. It must be there here in the throat. That means there must be objectivity about whatever you have done in the past. Because you cannot go to the past and correct it. If that was the case, then we will not be bothered about any sadhana at all, isn't it? Every time we understand, then we can go back and correct certain things. It is not possible. So therefore, the focus should be that how am I to get over all those things and get myself steady on the path now? What should be my duty? What should be my focus as to what is to be done now? Forget about the past. It would have been better if I had done certain things. Or it could have been, something else could have been done in a much better way than what I could have joined academy much earlier, or I could have studied Sanskrit. Various things can be there. These should not affect your present sadhana. Remember this, that whatever you are at the present now is the best suited nature for your evolution. That is how it is suited. And it can be done only in stages, in steps. You cannot try and bypass any of this. So therefore, he says, this mantra is like a psychological boost. The boost in the sense, at any point of time, we need not worry. There is always a remedy. There is always optimism. This is the greatness of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. There is no such thing as eternal damnation or eternal hell, nothing like that. Yes, if you are going to do wrong karma, if you are going to do selfish karma and Nishiddha karma, you will be demoted. You will go down in the ladder of devolution. But again, chance will be given by the nature and a conducive atmosphere will come so that you are able to promote yourself further. See, a student is not studying well, plus he is doing a lot of mischief and mistakes. So without any choice, with big, grief in the heart, the teacher and the parent will demote the student from one standard to one standard below. That doesn't mean that the student's life is over. He is still given chance to read, then he will again get promoted, then again he can move further. This is exactly how our karmic consequences function. Now, we have to only focus on what to do in the present so that the past can be wiped out. That's all. We need to focus on that only. Too much of going into the past, because some people go into this past life therapy and this and that, what I did in previous janma, what is that called? Regression. All this analysis is beyond a point futile waste of time. Okay, say suppose you are having a recurring problem or recurring ache even in the body, let us say, and let us assume it is because of some past karma. That's all you need to understand. You need not go and understand what happened to my head in the last janma, because that body and this body has no connection directly. or what I did to my husband in the last janma or wife. All that you have to understand. If I am agitated now, I have caused agitation to somebody else, and that you need not go to past janma, go to 3-4 days back in your life in Kali Yuga. That's what Swami Ramtirtha says. You have to turn the pages of your life, just 3-4 pages. You will find the answer, So that's all we need to understand, how the law of karma functions. So it will be a very, a criminal mistake if we get into the details of each and everything that we did in the past. That is why nature helps, and Lord Krishna says that he functions as apohanam in us. Apohanam means loss of memory. If all the memory is there in the same intensity with which we experienced, we will collapse. Our head cannot take it. So it is nature's blessing that what percentage do we retain in our experiences?
Fraction, very fraction.
What is that fraction?
Less than 1.
But something is available for recall.
Something is available for recall. What is that percentage?
0.001.
0.001 is also a very, very big number. It is infinitesimal. If you consider all the activities that you undertook, and at that every point of time you are conscious about the activity, it does get registered, but we just forget last day or 2 weeks back what you had for breakfast also we won't remember, but at that point of time you might have relished it and you would have had that breakfast. So it is a loss of memory, in a way is a blessing for us. Okay, so we need to focus on what should be done in the present. Now, it is not possible for us to get into the next level of consciousness or evolution unless otherwise you have settled the karmic consequences at that level. If you have not settled your karmic effects of that at that point of time, it is not possible for you to move ahead. Rather, let us put it this way. What makes you dissolve all the karmic consequences till now is you are yearning or wanting to move ahead. That is the key factor in writing off our past karma. Writing off, when I say wiping off. That is why he says in this mantra, Tasmad avimuktam ashruto bhavati. Therefore, one should strive for liberation. We will come back to that verse. But before that, what are the things that you are purified of? He says all types of sins. Sins is not to be understood in general sense as how Westerners or the Abrahamic faiths understand. It is nothing inherent in an action. Sin is something very individual specific at your level of evolution, that if any action that you do or any absence of action, if it comes back and hits you, if it comes back and agitates you, then you are supposed to have committed a sin at your level. This is called as papa. Okay, and there are various types of papa according to the intensity of our intentions, etc. So he says, he gives the list of probably all the worst type of activities that we do, and then generally he makes a statement by saying, you will be freed from everything. So there is 100% scope, however big and however deep it is, understand that our past karma is limited. So this is the first optimistic note that we must take, that it can be come over. Forget about whether you do this in this janma or some other janmas. That is not the point of discussion here. As long as we know that it is finite, there itself there must be a great sigh of relief. Swamiji used to narrate a story in a different context. He says, Sage Narada was moving along, and in the Himalayan forest or some forests, first he meets a person who is doing tapas under a tree, and he gives him darshan, and he is delighted, and he says, what do you want? He knows that Lord Sage Narada goes everywhere. He goes to Swarga, he goes to Vaikuntha, everywhere. So he says, if you go to Vaikuntha, please inquire with the Lord, how many more janmas do I have before realization? I am doing tapas for self-realization. How many more janmas I should spend time on this earth? And then he goes again. After a while, he meets another person doing the same exercise under a tamarind tree. And he also requests that if you meet the Lord, ask on my behalf as to how many more janmas that I have before realization. I am very eager to meet the Lord. Meaning, I want to realize the self. Narada said, okay, After a while, he finished and his trip, and he came back. He met the first person and he told him, "Sir, did you ask Lord about my question?" "Yes." "So how many janmas do I have?" He said, "This is your last janma. This is your last janma." So that person was delighted. He immediately stopped all tapas and everything and he said, "Let me enjoy life. Anyway, this is my last janma." That type of idea he had, and he said thanks and went away. The other person, he was under a tamarind tree. So he asked, "How many more janmas do I have?" So Sage Narada said, "As many janmas as there are leaves in this tree." Tamarind tree has such a small leaves, and it is as though infinite, but many numbers. Immediately this person was very elated. He was very happy. Narada said, "I said, you understood what I said? So many number of janmas." He said, "Sir, thank you. First of all, I know that the number of leaves in this tree is finite. So I know that I still have only finite number of janmas." Actually, the story is, he is actually going to realize in this janma, and the other person has lot of more janmas. That is why Narada gave the anugraha as to whatever he wanted, he got it. He wanted more life in the world and he got more life in the world. This person wanted tapas and realization and he got it. But the point here is, it could be that so many janmas are there with reference to the number of leaves in the tamarind tree. But we know that then it is finite. It is not infinite. That it is not going to carry on forever. That itself must be a great optimism for us. And then we need not worry about which janma, because then it becomes too much of result orientation. As we said in the last class, you be happy about the journey only. You begin to enjoy the journey. Sooner or later the destination is going to come. It is His promise. So what are we worried about? So the sins that are getting purified like this is because of our earnestness for liberation. In other words, if there is only a strong yearning to go to the next level, will we want to absolve ourselves of our sins in this level? Therefore, we will do whatever is the karma that is required, whatever is this. So, in other words, what do we mean by when we get over certain things means the effect of it is already experienced by us, or you have a deep feeling and a paschatap over it, and then you cross over it. This is what it means by getting over it. And that can come only when your thought is deeply rooted in the self. So when a person gets immersed in devotion, immersed in jnana, what happens is that you will find even in the poetries of great jnanis who have turned in one lifetime from being an extreme sensualist and materialist into a spiritual person, they keep on crying and crying as to why they wasted their lives. Purandaradasa, Arunagirinatha, various people. That itself becomes the hetu or the cause for them to cross over all their past karma. That's how it is done. So by which the thought of self gets rooted into our system. So he says, Agni Puto Bhavati. Agni Puto Bhavati means he becomes purified by fire. You become purified of all your sins and vasanas. That's what it means. Fire is the greatest purifier, and fire is usually associated with knowledge. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate, says Bhagavad Gita. There is nothing equivalent to knowledge to make you purified. So he generally says that. That is one way of symbolism that you can take, that Sita went through the fire ordeal. What it means is, in symbolic way, the individual is having the final merger with the Supreme Self. Rama is the Supreme Self and Sita is the individual self. Jivatma has done all tapas and now it is at the point of merger. The separation happened and all the tapas was done and now the merger is going to happen. Finally, all the vasanas, sins, taints are all completely washed away. That is the purification through that fire. It is one way of looking at symbolism in Ramayana like this. So, Agni Puto Bhavati, Surapanat Puto Bhavati. Surapana means drinking intoxicant. The sin that you accrue of drinking intoxicant. It is extremely a tamasic habit. Why it is considered a sin? See, what do we mean by sin when we say it is the intention behind your action that determines whether it is a sin or not? Because based on your intention, it is going to agitate you. A person is at certain level. He is expected to operate at certain level of unselfishness. But the moment his intellect gets clouded, he doesn't know what he is doing. In the impulse, he does something. That is what is going to agitate you. Oh, then he regrets, I should not have done it. Not all people will have regrets. Some people who are at a very lower level, just to put that strong argument, take the case of an animal. Animal doesn't commit any sin. Even if a tiger kills some deer or a goat, innocent creature, it doesn't commit any sin because there's no regret. Similarly, if there are people at lower level, they don't have any regret. But if you regret, that means you have done something which is not correct from your standpoint. So therefore, when your intellect is clouded, you will not be able to operate fully at the level that you are. And this, what does this intoxicant do? It clouds your intellect. That's all it means. So see how much of a bad effect that the intoxicant has on our system. And people say that, I forget all my worries drinking, that all this is absolutely not able to face the problems. So it is given as a very strong deterrent. There was a movie, Rajinikanth movie, came in 80s. I think the name of the movie is Ranga. In his early days. So in that, basically in the beginning of the movie, the hero, Rajini, is a good person. He meets his old friend one day in a guest house type of a place. His old friend had become a thief. So they meet, they discuss, and then the old friend takes up a bottle of alcohol and he's about to drink, and he offers to his friend also. So the hero says, "What are you drinking? This is not a good habit." He says, "All this jnana don't give me. It just gives me pleasure." Then he narrates a very small story. It's very powerful. That's why I'm reminded of that. He says, a man is there and in front of whom Satan appears suddenly. So that Satan says, it says, "I'm going to swallow you. I'm going to kill you." So he says, "Spare me. I can spare you if only you follow what I say. So what should I do? I'll give you 3 options. You have to do one of them." And this person is basically a good person. What are the options? He says, it creates a very beautiful lady there, a maiden. You have to rape this girl. Then there's a small child, infant. Or you have to kill this child. And then it places a bottle of alcohol and says, or you have to drink this alcohol. So this person, being a conscientious person, how can he think in terms of harming another person? So he doesn't want to commit that act of rape. He doesn't want to kill the child. He says, "Let me go through suffering, let them not go through suffering," and he drinks the alcohol. Having drunk the alcohol, he goes and commits the act of rape also, and he kills the child also. So he says, what is the power of alcohol? The story is only to say what is the power of alcohol. In other words, it can just, even the best of the people, it will cloud their intellect. That's all. All their capacity, all their brilliance is there. But timely, it will not be available for them. And at that point of time, what you do, you yourself may not know. Later, when you regain your sober state, you will repent. So that type of sinful person also, he will get purified. Surapanat puto bhavati. Brahmahatyat puto bhavati. Brahmahatya means killing a Brahmin. Brahmin is one who is very highly sattvic, dedicated to the Brahman, Brahma Vidya. He is the sustainer of this knowledge. It is this knowledge that sustains the world. It is not a person who is merely born into a Brahmin family or a Brahmin community who has a sacred thread around him. No. It is a person who has cultivated high level of sattva in him, who is pursuing the knowledge of the self. It is by presence of such persons that the balance in the world is still maintained. Imagine if such a person you are going to kill, you are creating disturbance in the balance of the universe itself. So, such a heinous crime. It is exactly like what is given in Nishedha Karma as cutting a tree that is in the middle of a village. How much of usefulness it gives, it is immeasurable. It sustains the groundwater, it brings in the clouds, it gives shelter to birds, it gives fruits to everybody, it gives shade to everybody, innumerable benefits. And out of fun or out of some thought that you go and cut the tree, it is not really a great act that you have done. It is a sin. Like that, it is killing a Brahmin, Brahma Hatyat. You will be cleared of that sin also. Brahma Hatyat Bhuto Bhavati. Then he generally says as Kritya Krityat Bhuto Bhavati. Kritya Krityat Bhuto Bhavati means any commission and omission. All the things that you ought to do but you have not done, all the things you ought not to do but you have done because of the force of your desire, you are cleared of all those things also. In general, say suppose you should not have committed a theft, you did it, or you did some small mistake but you know it was a mistake, or as I said, certain things you should not have done, you done, and the regret like I should have taken up this course, or I should have served in my Swadharma, something like that. Certain things that you have, all those regrets of the past can be come over. Kritya Krityat Bhuto Bhavati. Then is very important. He says Tasmat. Therefore, Avimuktam Ashruto Bhavati. Saha is there. Yaha, he says first. Yaha, Saha is a idiomatic construction in Sanskrit. Yaha means whoever. Whoever does this, he gets purified of this, he gets purified of this, and that he continues, it is understood and it continues here. Saha is so it comes here. And he says, Tasmad Avimuktam Ashruto Bhavati. Ashrutaha means it's a past participle. He has become a refugee of Avimukta. Avimukta is a very interesting term and it's very beautifully translated in Swamiji's this translation. He says, and he has given a commentary also about it. Avimukta means one never not liberated. One never not liberated. See, certain things in Sanskrit are constructed in such a beautiful way that it conveys a very deep import. In the beginning, we had this word called Nakam. Third mantra, we had Nakam. Nakam means heaven. Heaven in the Kam means joy. Okay. Akam means sorrow. Nakam means nothing to do with worldly joy, heaven. It is nothing to do with non-sorrow. That means it has nothing to do with the joy or sorrow of this world, but it's something beyond. So that construction of the term gives a different meaning. So when you say Mukta is a liberated person, the opposite of should be Amukta. That is the opposite. In the Sanskrit is opposite. But Vimukta means one who is well liberated. Nanya Pantha Vimuktaye says one of the mantras before. So Avimukta means opposite of not liberated. That doesn't mean that he is extremely bound. That means that he who cannot be bound. Avimukta therefore refers to the Supreme Self only. Avimukta refers to that Supreme Self. It can be in a seen as though Pratyaksha in a realized person, or the Supreme Lord that he is talking about here as the Rudra himself, who is Avimukta, in whom you should take refuge. Somebody asked the question a couple of days back, how to cross over. You can only cross over a person who is there in the ocean, who himself is struggling. Can he help another person who is struggling in the ocean? It's not possible. Who can help? Only one who is standing rock solid on the shore. He can throw a rope. You can catch hold of it and come. Therefore, that person who is struggling in the ocean or in the river should take refuge in a person who is standing on the ground. Similarly, when you are in trouble, when we are in this state of samsara, highly bound, who can release us? Can anybody who is bound himself, can he release us? No. So where should your refuge be? Your refuge must be in who is never bound. Tasmad avimuktam ashruto bhavati. So what is the effect of studying this Shatarudriya is this, that it gets into your system to such an extent that ultimately it makes you take refuge in that ultimate reality. So we see that like every text, this also finally culminates in what is known as that absolute surrender. There is no other way. Mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite, says Krishna in Gita. Whoever is able to surrender unto me, only they can cross Maya. You try by your own effort. It will finally it will escape. It's just not possible. Finally, what will happen? That infinite only can pull the finite into the state of infinite. Therefore, the finite has to surrender itself into the infinite here. So, tasmat avimuktam ashruto bhavati. And then he says, atyashrami. Atyashrami means sannyasi. There are 4 ashramas: brahmacharya, grahastha vanaprastha and sannyasa ashrama. Atyashrama is the highest ashrama, which is sannyasa. Sarvada sakritva japet. So what he is giving as a caution is, a person who is able to do this sarvada has to be a atyashrami. That means, if you want to get this into your system and you want to do it on a full-time awareness basis, you want to do it on a continual basis, you have to be a renunciate of the highest order. Renunciate not necessarily means that one has to take an ochre robe and practice that heart sadhana. That state of renunciation can be achieved by a grahastha also. But what it really matters is the maturity of the heart by elevating yourself to the higher realm of consciousness. That is a sannyasi. In fact, anashrita karma palam karyam karma karoti yaha, says Gita, is sa sannyasi. So a person is a sannyasi who is able to just perform his karyam karma, that is his obligatory duties, without eye on the fruit. That is the starting point of sannyas. So therefore, when you are getting into the spiritual sadhana, understand that it is a full-time awareness of truth, not a part-time pastime. So an atyashrami. So, but specifically for atyashrami, therefore what he says, sarvada, always. Always means there is a constant meditation. Constant meditation includes what we call as a open eye meditation also. That means, I think Paramahamsa says, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, what is that God who says, I will appear before you only when you close your eyes in meditation, otherwise not? That means he is in one way limited or the other. Actually, you open your eyes also, he is only there. But it is for you to open your eyes and see it. That practice by which you are able to invoke the self in and through all the activities is what he is referring to here. Sarvada, always do this. That means, if you have that intense attitude of wanting to liberate yourself, you cannot afford to let your mind waste its energy in any other form. You have to be at this practice constantly. So it will ultimately culminate in closed eye meditation, but it has to be awareness of the self throughout our experiences. Then he says, very interesting, sakritva japet. This is a solace to all of us. It can be literally taken, okay, in all your activities that at present we are not able to even concentrate on God even for a moment. What he is talking about, sarvada, okay, he says at least sakritva. This can be even taken literally, that he talks about Shatarudreeya madite. So therefore chant Shatarudreeya all the time. Take it literally. If you cannot chant it all the time, at least once with full intensity and bhavana, chant it once at least. So it is a very great solace for us that at least we can do this. So much concession is given. But what exactly sakritva means here is, sakritva means at least once. So what really matters is not that the constant chanting and awareness that you create, but that intensity and depth of it is important. Even if you are able to chant the Lord's name once, even if you are able to meditate once, even if you are able to do the upasana or bhakti or whatever sadhana once, even if you are able to do that swadhyaya, study and reflection in the morning once, do it with great depth and intensity. So he says, at least do it once. Sarvada sakritva japet.
Sir?
Yes.
This is when he is talking about doing it that once is at very deep level. Once you have gone to that depth, will it not automatically become sarvada, permanent only?
It will become. It starts with the practice of at least once and then getting into the practice of it. So when he says atyashrami, a person who is at the highest order of sannyasa, he is still not realized. He is still putting in an effort. So he begins his constant awareness program by at least doing it once. So a person is able to at least do it once, get the taste of it, then it will become constant, as it were. So by doing it with intensity at least once, it then percolates into your system. Then it will start reflecting in every other activity and experience that you do. So that's all it means. It is not to not attempt sarvada. It is to say that sarvada sakritva, or at least once, he says, or at least once has to be taken as the initial way by which you enter into this.
I'm thinking a little pessimistically that if I am able to do that once, then I have achieved it anyways. Doing that once is so challenging.
So that is, you need not take it pessimistically. Try that. It's optimistic only. When he gives that concession that you at least do once, it is a great concession for us. So if you are able to achieve once, that itself is a big achievement. Then you need not worry. That one will take you further into that path itself. So it must be taken optimistically only.
Sir, talking about Farashruti, in Vishnu Sahasranam also it is mentioned. Now here he is talking about this japa. There it starts with yes, smarana matrena janma sansar, just by remembering. And in the end he concludes by the Farashruti, Brahma hatyadikam ghoram sarva papam vinashyati. Here he is saying that drinking and all these things will be cleared. He says even to the extent of Brahmatya, all your sins will be cleared up just by remembering once. Now, my question, this is a different, sort of formulation put together that if you do japa also, you will be realizing if you think concentratedly in only single pointed source at one point. The question is that all these Farashrutis talk about this same type of thing. Now, do we not get confused as to whether to chant Vishnu Sahasranam just by remembering and getting clearing of all sins, or just by chanting the Shatarudreeya? If one starts deviating in all these lines, he will,
Therefore, be focused. You should not deviate into too much of it is going through the length of the study only. So a person has to, why do we talk about Ishta Devata, a particular Purana and a particular this thing? If you find Shiva Purana, if you are a Shaiva and a Shiva Bhakta, Shiva Purana will give all the glories of Shiva, and he has even, his powers is much superior to other gods' powers. All these things is given to make you fall in love with him, to get rooted in him that he is the best. Then you will do all the things that are associated with him so that there is a fixation. So the whole idea is fixation. It is not to cover many texts and each and every text you go with. If you have covered many texts, it is covering only the length. But once you go into the depth of it, you will find that in Kaivalya itself he says, Sabbrahma Sashiva Sahari Sendra Sokshara Paramaswarat. He is Shiva, he is Vishnu. So there will not be then a deviation, the fixation goes deeper into the Brahman itself. Having taken into this, for your sadhana's sake, you get fixated into one thing. Vishnu Sahasranama means that itself is enough. Bhagavad Gita means that itself is enough. Or Upanishad means that itself is enough. But take that one thing and going to the depth of it more and more and more will yield more results rather than moving across various things. Yes, sir.
This word Advaita makes me nervous. Because it is not just reading, understanding the words. It seems to be much more than that, getting into the gut of it.
Yes.
But it is different.
Yeah, it is. So that is why we are trying to explain it in a class like this, and that is what the reflection the Swamiji has given the program also. But it even if you are not able to understand and you are doing the chanting part of it, that itself is a starting point to be good. And then once you are able to sort of court it and live with it, the meanings itself will start revealing itself. See, at one stage is reflection where you understand it at the intellectual level, and then you are able to have doubts. Then you get into the deeper meaning of it and think more and revel in it. These are all the process that comes after Shravana, which is the main bulk part. A time will come where you get into what is known as Nididhyasana, where it is translated as contemplation, culminating in meditation. But there you don't have any doubts. You don't have any intellectual curiosity. You are firmly established, but yet you are yet to experience it. At that point of time, there is a blur between, when you read the lines, it is not two lines there. A 3D picture emerges out of it. That is what is meant by Adhyayana. By that, it will come out automatically. So all that you need to put in effort is to be sincere in your attempt to unearth the things. So what is important is the intensity with which you approach this. So it is not a Sanskrit Pandit is automatically going to qualify, though knowing Sanskrit is advantage. That is not necessarily a thing. It is the feeling and intensity with which you search the truth for it, it reveals. That is why very many verses in Gita you will find Swamiji's interpretation are quite revealing and so new from the old commentaries. How it struck him, whether it is right or not, we don't know. But it just reveals itself. Like the 12 Yajnas, how he has commented in the 4th chapter, it's quite unique. So that is how you have to relate to a text. So for which I was telling Sudhakar Kabra that take up something. That is why even the course material that we have is very limited, but that's good enough. You go into the depth of it. You go into the deeper reflection of it rather than going various texts. Reason why some of the people go into various texts is, see, suppose if you have taken this up as your field of activity, you need to know certain other things that apart. If there is no inherent intellectual strength to get into the depth, you become tired at the intellectual level. So in order to balance the tiredness, you offset it by going into length rather than depth. So it doesn't matter whether we understand 20%, 30%, but you sort of live with the verse, you live with the mantra, you quote the mantra, then you will have a relationship with the text. That is how it should be, Adhyayana has to be done. Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm not clear. How can one be absolved from your actions by chanting Shatarudreeya? Because now at this stage, Brahma is addressing to a student who is already qualified. At the initial stage, you tell people, okay, you take 10 dips in the Ganges and you will be purified of all your sins. This is being addressed to a very high level of students. So then, I'm not being able to understand.
So that is why he says, as a part 2, I said it is advice that is given to all levels of seekers. And this mantra says, Yash Shatarudriya Madite. Whoever does this, whoever means it applies to all of us at whichever level we are. So when you take a dip in the Ganges, it is not that the Ganga water is going to, the physical water of Ganga is washing away the sin. The ritual that is there is to be done with this thought that I am doing this because whatever Shastras have said or some elders have said, but the whole thought process is that I want to get rid of this, and your positive outlook in doing that is what is going to change the karmic consequences in you. So when you are at the level where you are starting now, definitely you can say that how Shatarudriya will help me, I don't understand, which is, I would say, correct. Unless otherwise you have experienced Shatarudriya, unless otherwise you have chanted and seen the effect even a little, how will you know? See, suppose I say, it is more beneficial to give rather than to take. Okay? You will find that joy. But you say, how can that be? I have seen people acquiring wealth, and that is what everybody is doing. How can giving wealth be joy? I can never convince you with my arguments or logic. What you must do, give 5 rupees to a needy person, see the feeling in you, only then you will know. It is that experience that will give you a taste of what is being said. Exactly like that. Only when we get into the mode of chanting and understanding the Shatarudriya, we will know what effect it produces. So standing on the shore, I cannot say that I can't see how the ocean is deep or something like that. Unless you get into the ocean, how will you know it? So we have to at least venture into it little bit, understand and feel the taste of it, then it will take you further.
So what I really meant was, I can understand that, okay, if I reach Shatarudriya, my future action will lead to a better future. But the basic law of karma will always be there. That's what I'm trying.
That is what is the future. How will it be better if the present is not wiped off? How will the future be better? That means you will always carry your consequences and guilt all the time. That means it is infinite, you are saying? It cannot be. Think about it. The growing up from one level to other level is possible when you get established in the higher level. And that is possible only when you are willing to deal with the karma at this level by wanting to go to the next level. So a time will come where you can completely wipe off. There are people who have given up the habit of smoking or drinking. They have given it up completely. Completely, when I say not a vasana is lingering, that they have the thought of smoking and they are controlling it. The thought of smoking itself is not there. How is it possible that such a habit can be wiped out of your system? But practically, have you not seen it can be wiped off? That means a person who has once got into the habit of cigarette can never leave it. This is what you are saying. I am saying this is not the case. It can be wiped off.
So I didn't mean that. I'm sorry, I couldn't explain. So what I really meant was, suppose you have done X bad karma. So So by reading Shatarudreeya, maybe your future actions will be right because it will get ingrained into your system and you will perform the right actions. So which will lead to a better thing. But whatever wrong action you have done in the past, you will have to bear the fruits.
That's what I said. The effect of it you will quickly go through. And it will be the way. It is not that I am saying that the karma will not have its effect. The way by which you encounter the effect and pass over the effect is facilitated by Shatarudriya. That's all it means.
Yeah, you'll be able to handle it better. So
Yes, you will. And see, suppose if you have done a particular negative karma, let us say it has its impact is 50, just to give a number, and it, let's say the result doesn't manifest immediately. You have understood, the awareness is there and you want to do, that is why there is something in our Shastras called as Prayaschitta karma. Prayaschitta karma. Paschat tap, they say. Paschat tap means afterward. Tap means there is a heat in you. You are not able to bear that heat of your own action. In that paschat tap, you search for a Prayaschitta karma and you do it. You do 100 positive actions. This 100 positive actions will have effect, right? It may negate that 50. It doesn't mean that on a one-to-one basis the 50's effect is not there, but it will be overcome. Shatarudriya is able to do this in a very easy and faster way. That's all it means here. He who absorbs Shatarudriya becomes purified by fire, purified of drinking intoxicant, purified of killing a Brahmin, purified of commission and omission. Therefore, one should strive to become ever liberated. He who is of the highest order of life should chant it always or once. We'll chant mantra 2.
Anena jnanamapnoti samsararnavanashanam tasmadevam viditvainam kaivalyam phalamashnuta iti. Anena jnanamapnoti samsararnavanashanam tasmadevam viditvainam kaivalyam phalamashnuta iti.
By this he attains wisdom which destroys the ocean of samsara, birth, death cycle. Therefore, thus having known this, he attains the fruit of liberation. He attains the fruit of liberation. Anena. Anena means by this. By this means? By
chanting the Shastras.
By Guru's advice given in the mantra 1. By study, reflect and reach sannyasa and meditate. That process that he has given, which is jnana marga he has given. Jnanam apnoti, attains wisdom. Attains wisdom means he attains the knowledge of the self. He attains the realization. The moment you attain a realization, you are instantly liberated. It is the knowledge of the self that instantly liberates you. You are absolutely free like a bird from that time onwards. Because knowledge of the self destroys the ocean of samsara. Samsara means a terrestrial entanglement unintelligently caused by our past. Birth, death cycle is called as a samsara. Samsara is where you don't know how you get into it, but you cannot retrieve yourself. By the time you realize it's neck deep, that's called a samsara. So that is why any particular thing that you create, why have you created a samsara, they say. A person need not be married, but he can still create samsara. In different field, he can create a samsara. A person who has renounced everything can get into spiritual field and get into another type of samsara there, if he is not careful. So samsara is still terrestrial entanglement, but all those things are completely wiped off. You cross over all these things. Tasmat, again, therefore, evam viditva enam, having known this thus. Having known this refers to Brahman. This refers to the self. What started as tat tvameva tat, he now says enam, this, thus, evam. Thus means by experience, not by external knowledge, not by intellect, not by your reflection, but by your experience. What you do is, you at that point of time, you arrest the movement. Then you get the fruit of liberation. Kaivalyam phalamashnute. You attain the fruit of liberation. Kaivalyam means, we said in the beginning, it comes from the root kevala, noun form. Kaivalyam means that alone. that alone is a one homogeneous mass of consciousness. Merely that, only that homogeneous mass of consciousness you become. That homogeneous mass of consciousness you become. You get liberated. The repetition marks the end of the Upanishad. Now Paramashubhyo. Since he has said Yes Shatarudreeya Madite, and that Brahma Shatarudriya may be taken as this Kaivalya itself, tradition says that we will chant the first mantra once to humble ourselves that we have not begun, but we have not concluded the text, but we are only starting it today. But since it's only 4 minutes, we will chant the invocation and the entire Kaivalya once.
Bhadram karnebhiः shrunuyama devaः Bhadram pashyemakshabhiryajatraः Sthirairangaisthushtuvagunsastanubhiः Vyashema devahitam yadayuः Swasti na indro vruddhashravah Swasti na pusha vishvavedah Swasti nastaksho varishtanemihi Swasti no bruhaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Athashvalayano bhagavantam parameshtinamupsametyo vacha adhihi bhagavan brahma vidyam varishtam sada sadbhis sevyamanam nigudham yaya chirat sarva papam vyapohya parat param purusham yati vidvan Tasmai sahovacha pitamahascha shraddha bhakti dhyana yogadavaihi na karmana na prajaya dhane na tyage naike amritatvamanaşuh parena nakam nihitam guhayam vibhrajate yadyatayo vishanti Vedanta Vijnana Sunishchitartha Sannyasa Yoga Jataya Shuddha Sattvaha Te Brahma Lokeshu Paranta Kale Paramritat Parimuchanti Sarve Vivitta Deshe Cha Sukhasanasta Shuchis Samagriva Shirashariraha Atyashramastas sakalendriyani niruddhya bhaktya swagurum pranamya Hritpundarikam virajam vishuddham vichintya madhye vishadam vishokam Achintyamavyaktamanantarupam shivam prashantamamritam brahmayonim Tadhimadhyantavihinamekam vibhum chidanandamarupam Umasahayam parameshwaram prabhum trilochanam neelakantham prashantam Yatva munirgacchati bhutayonim samasta sakshim tamasah parastat Sabrahma Sashivasendra Sokshara Paramaswarat Saeva Vishnu Saprana Sakalo Nissa Chandramaha Saeva Sarvam Yadbhutam Yaccha Bhavyam Sanatanam Nyatva Tam Mrityumatyeti Nanyah Pantha Vimuktaye Sarvabhutastamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani सम्पश्यन् ब्रह्म परमं याति नान्येन हेतुना आत्मानमरणिं कृत्वा प्रणवं चोत्तरारणिं ज्ञाननिर्मथनाभ्यासात् पाशं दहति पण्डितः स एव माया परिमोहितात्मा शरीरमास्थाय करोति सर्वम् श्रियन्नपानादिविचित्रभोगैः स एव जाग्रत् परितृप्तिमेति स्वप्ने सजीवः सुखदुःखभोक्ता स्वमायया कल्पितविश्वलोके सुषुप्तिकाले सकले विलीने तमोभिभूतः सुखरूपमेति पुनश्च जन्मान्तरकर्मयोगात् स एव जीवः स्वपिति प्रबुद्धः पुरत्रये क्रीडति यश्च जीवस्ततस्तु जातं सकलं विचित्रम् आधारमानन्दमखण्डबोधं यस्मिन् लयं याति पुरत्रयं च एतस्माज्जायते प्राणो मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च खं वायुर्ज्योतिरापः पृथिवी विश्वस्य धारिणी यत्परं ब्रह्म सर्वात्मा विश्वस्यायतनं महत् सूक्ष्मात् सूक्ष्मतरं नित्यं तत्त्वमेव त्वमेव तत् जाग्रत् स्वप्न सुषुप्त्यादिप्रपञ्चं यत् प्रकाशते तद्ब्रह्माहमिति ज्ञात्वा सर्वबन्धैः प्रमुच्यते त्रिषु धामसु यद्भोग्यं भोक्ता भोगश्च यद्भवेत् तेभ्यो विलक्षणः साक्षी चिन्मात्रोऽहं सदाशिवः मय्येव सकलं जातं मयि सर्वं प्रतिष्ठितम् मयि सर्वं लयं याति तद्ब्रह्माद्वयमस्म्यहम् अणोरणीयानहमेव तद्वन्महानहं विश्वमहं विचित्रम् पुरातनोऽहं पुरुषोऽहमीशो हिरण्मयोऽहं शिवरूपमस्मि अपाणिपादोऽहमचिन्त्यशक्तिः पश्याम्यचक्षुः सशृणोम्यकर्णः अहं विजानामि विविक्तरूपो न चास्ति वेत्ता मम चित्सदाहम् वेदैरनेकैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम् न पुण्यपापे मम नास्ति नाशो न जन्म देहेन्द्रियबुद्धिरस्ति न भूमिरापो न च वह्निरस्ति न चानिलो मेऽस्ति न चाम्बरं च एवं विदित्वा परमात्मरूपं गुहाशयं निष्कलमद्वितीयम् समस्तसाक्षिं सदसद्विहीनं प्रयाति शुद्धं परमात्मरूपम् यः शतरुद्रीयमधीते सोऽग्निपूतो भवति सुरापानात् पूतो भवति ब्रह्महत्यात् पूतो भवति कृत्यात् पूतो भवति तस्मादविमुक्तमाश्रितो भवति अत्याश्रमी सर्वदा सकृत्वा जपेत् अनेन ज्ञानमाप्नोति संसारार्णवनाशनम् तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं कैवल्यं फलमश्नुते कैवल्यं फलमश्नुत इति.
We'll conclude with the bhajans here.
Madhava
मुकुन्द आनन्द गोविन्द राधे गोपाल गोविन्द माधव गोपाल केशव गोविन्द माधव गोपाल केशव गिरिधारी गिरिधारी जय राधे गोपाल गिरिधारी गिरिधारी जय राधे गोपाल घनश्याम श्याम श्याम जय जय राधे गोपाल घनश्याम श्याम श्याम जय जय राधे गोपाल जय नंद मुकुंद आनंद गोविंद राधे गोपाल जय नंद मुकुंद आनंद गोविंद राधे गोपाल गोविन्द माधव गोपाल केशव गोविन्द माधव गोपाल केशव गोपाल केशव गोपाल केशव पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः